Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm JP Tong, and welcome to today's program, Detox Your Mind. Today, I'll be talking about a topic that many people don't feel comfortable discussing. It's because I'll be talking about fear. So, all of us have different fears, and all of us have, to a certain extent, fears that will paralyze us, or there are certain fears that people are not even aware of. So I will talk about the various fears that we may have and what exactly is fear. Okay, what exactly is fear and how we can actually overcome this emotion that we have. All right, so what is fear? So fear is a human emotion, okay, that is triggered. All right, so something happens that we feel is threatening to our life. It's threatening to our life, and the emotion arises, and that's fear. So if we feel threatened, something that threatens us, that may endanger our life, that is how fear will arise. So that is the most basic, fundamental reasons of how, if you think on a deeper level, when we're always afraid of something, but ultimately it is about something that endangers our life. So that is the bottom line. All right. Then, um, what other events can arise that will actually trigger this emotion of fear? One is certain situations or events that may harm us. So either it can create pain, physical pain, or some sort of an emotional pain, or emotional suffering. That then again that triggers fear as well. Okay, so what areas? So what are the general areas where we find fear? What are the general areas? One is health. Okay, especially now with the COVID-19 pandemic, people are afraid. People are afraid of getting COVID and dying. Okay, and that's very natural fear. Okay, and why is it that some people are afraid of dying? Actually, most people are afraid of dying. Most. There are many, many reasons, and this is something that we usually don't talk about, but I think it is necessary because why? Because now that we're in a situation, in a global situation, whereby, we our time can be, or our death can be knocking at our door any time. It is not a very it is a topic that most people don't like to talk about, but I think we need to. Because why? Because when the fear arises, that's where we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we're afraid of? What is it about dying that we're afraid of? And before this program, I was talking to our colleague here, um, over the phone, and she said that many people are afraid of dying. And I said, what exactly are they afraid of? Is it the pain? Is it the suffering that arises when you are dying? Or are you afraid of the unknown? Like what happens next after you take your last breath? So when we want to understand our fear, we have to also ask ourselves, what are we really afraid of? Because when you say I'm afraid of dying, it's very general. What about death are you afraid of? What about death? Okay, so that's the other extreme. So other health, in terms of health, of our health that we're afraid of is perhaps going through surgery. Some people don't like to be in a hospital. The fear of being in a hospital, the fear of having a jab, the fear of getting treatment because it's a lot of discomfort. So so many people are afraid of being of feeling that physical discomfort. Okay, so that's the health. I'm just giving you general terms, all right? So then other areas of fear would be perhaps work. At work, you are afraid that there's a fear that you don't give people the right impression about you. You're afraid that your boss may not like you. You're afraid of, I mean, there's so many things to be afraid of, that you're not popular with your colleagues. So what, we have to ask ourselves, so what's that fear about? Are we afraid of being rejected? Or are we afraid of losing the job? Or are we afraid of not getting that increment at the end of the year which is what you really need to pay your bills? So what is that fear about? So again, in terms of work, let's see what that fear is about. Okay, then for family would be the fear of perhaps your children not growing into decent adults the way you want them to be. Again, so that fear, the fear of your children not fulfilling a certain expectation that you have for them in the name of love. Okay, it is with good intentions. Again, it's the fear arising that they may not meet your expectations for them for good reasons. Okay, so I'm not judging, I'm just saying, I'm just identifying areas of your fear so that you're very clear of what your fear is about. And family members, perhaps the fear of losing your family members, the fear of losing uh, perhaps our parents, our loved ones as they're aging, or some who are sick. And there's always that fear that you may lose them because you love them dearly. So we ask ourselves, so yes, we are afraid of losing them. Okay, so what is that fear about? So if you lose something, which is the natural course of the universe, things come and things go. A life is born, and then the life and the cycle is such that it ends. So there's a life cycle. Okay, so everything will come and everything will go. So, but the thing is, we always want to attach ourselves. We always like to hold on to things and try to make it as permanent as possible. But you see, when we don't realize that the nature of how the universe works is that things come and go. The sun rises and the sun has to set. Okay, so the plant can grow from a seed, it can grow up from a sapling to a tree, but eventually it has to die and then go back, to being ashes and part of the soil. So that's how the universe works. All right, so that's how nature works. So when we fail to, or when we fail to accept that, or we don't want to accept that, whatever it is, when we cling on to something thinking that it will be permanent, then the fear will arise when there is a threat that it will be taken away from us. Okay, so that's where the other fear actually will arise. Okay, so again, I'm not judging, I'm just helping everyone here identify the what your fear is actually about. All right, so that is for family. I'm sure there are other reasons. There are other fears in the family. I'm just giving you general ones. Financial fear, that's a big one. All right, so with all this lockdown, people don't have work, they have bills to pay. I mean, these are real problems. Okay, so these are real problems. So there's a fear that you cannot overcome your real problems, and then what happens? So it's always that fear of when problems arise and when we do not resolve it in time, then we are going to suffer. Okay, we cannot pay the bills, we may lose everything we have, we may not even have food to eat, which is happening right now during the lockdown. So that fear again is there. Okay, so, and I'll talk about overcoming these kind of fears. All right, and areas of fear, your past experiences, it can be a certain experience that you had in the past and it brought you a lot of suffering, either emotional suffering, mental suffering, physical suffering. And because of that experience, that unpleasant experience you had in the past, you tell yourself you're never going to allow yourself to go through that experience again. So when a similar situation arises, I say similar, right? It's always similar, it's never the same because that moment has passed. So when you experience a similar situation, immediately it will trigger the senses and go, oh, your alarm bells will go off, and then you will tell yourself, that reminds me of that horrible experience that I had in my past. So, and before you really go into it, you kind of back out of it, or you have this wall in front of you to protect you from being emotionally or mentally hurt again, or physically hurt again. So again, these kind of fears can arise. Now, anxiety is a form of fear. It is. You're anxious, of certain things, of all these areas that I just spoke about. So you're anxious whether or not it will fulfill your expectation. So again, I spoke about expectations a few programs ago. So the more expectations we have, the more fearful we will become. You think about it. What is the fear about? The fear of not fulfilling those expectations. And that is why people get anxiety attack. Does it sound familiar? And when you have an anxiety attack, you don't even realize it. And anxiety attacks can come in all forms, and you just don't know. Sometimes you have chest pain. Sometimes you lose sleep. Sometimes you become very forgetful. You have cold sweat, or you have heart palpitation. But there are many, many forms of anxiety attacks. So that's something, and when it happens, you may not even be aware of it. So the best thing is to check with your doctor, and the first thing they'll ask you is, "Are you very stressed?" Okay, so, and that's something that you have to check in with yourself and see which part of your life is causing this anxiety attack, which you're not aware of. Okay, most people when they have anxiety attacks, they don't even know they have it. So again, we have to check in with ourselves. Okay, do you have any questions so far? Hi Nancy, Agnes, hi Iman, Sokfan, Louis, hi Louis, Cat Steven, Cochran, Peg, hi Lily, long time no see, Julie, Kirsten, hi Kamala, hi Jesse, Pastor Antoinette, Pastor Shin, and Sharon. And the rest of you, thank you very much for tuning in today. So anxiety, ask yourself, what situations do you always feel yourself having this anxious feeling? Okay, so it is a fear of certain things not being fulfilled based on your expectations. Okay, I'm not talking about your intention, because I am very sure, very certain that your intentions are good, but we have to monitor them to see whether or not they are realistic, and whether or not we are trying to fit something into our cookie cutter. Okay, so we have to understand that when we try to force something into our cookie cutter, let's say your cookie cutter is a square, and you want to force a round thing into that square cookie cutter, it's not going to fit. It will cut the edges, and that's where a lot of friction and discomfort will arise. Right? So we have to ask ourselves, it's not about the intention, it's about, are we being realistic? Are we forcing our view or our version of reality on situations and people? Are we doing that? Or are we really perceiving reality as is? Okay, I'll repeat. Are we forcing our version of reality on people and situations? Or are we perceiving reality as is? Now, this is something we have to ask ourselves. Okay, I'm not talking about your intention, I'm talking about your perception of reality. A lot of fear arises because of the first, which is we want reality to fit into our version of reality. And that's where the issue lies. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, please write, you can always write um, in the comment section, and I'll answer it for you right now. Okay? So take some time and think about it. Think about it and see how that is true for you. Because you see, when you start to identify what your fears are and really understand, don't just say, oh, I am afraid of dying, and that's it. What about dying are you afraid of? Are you afraid because you don't know what's going to happen to you next? Or you're afraid of the pain? What is it? Or you cannot let go of your loved ones, that's why you're afraid of dying. So again, we have to know exactly what it is that you're afraid of. I think we have a question here. Hi, Freon. Okay, let's see. DJP, what is the difference between fear and stress? Because today I am shocked to learn that fear can cause forgetfulness. How is fear? How can fear cause how it is fear can cause forget? Because I only know stress can cause forgetfulness. Okay. What is the difference between fear and stress? Well, fear is something that you're afraid of. You're afraid of doing something. There's something that you're afraid of. Afraid of. Stress is another emotion that arises when you feel that you are not fulfilling a certain expectation that you have set for yourself. So think about it. So why you stress at work is because, well, you have a lot of work and perhaps you cannot finish it on time, or you're not meeting your sales target, and there's so many things that you're not fulfilling, and that's where the stress level increases. And that you can also apply to your personal life, your health. Maybe you're not as fit as you would like to be, and then your doctor says, well, you better do something because because a certain part of your organ is failing. Then that's where the stress comes, and you go, oh. So there are many reasons. So what I'm trying to say is, stress is an emotion that arises when a certain situation, when you cannot meet or fulfill a certain expectation. Okay, that's where the stress comes in. The fear is, again, like I said, that emotion of being of something that that is harmful to you, that will not serve you, that is harmful to you, and ultimately endanger your life. Ultimately, okay. Not all fears are because you're afraid of dying, but of other things. Okay, so like I said earlier, like rejection. There's this fear that people will reject you, will say bad things, behind your back, don't accept you, will judge you. They and and for whatever reason, you're always afraid of that. So again, you have to ask yourself, so what if they don't accept you? So what if they reject you? What actually happens? Okay, I'll talk about that shortly. All right, so yes, so fear can also cause you to be forgetful. Because why? Because when you're always in fear, you're focused on your emotion and you really don't focus on what's in front of you because you're just too bogged down with your fear. All right, so think back when you're in a situation where you feel this huge sense of fear arising and you're just so scared and so nervous. All right, what happens? Your entire being is focused on that emotion. That's why whatever is going to happen, you are going to forget. And whatever that happened before, because why? You're not focused on remembering things, you're just immersed in that overwhelming sensation, which we call fear. And that's why people get very disoriented and they don't know what they're doing. They feel very lost because they're just overwhelmed by that fear. And that's why we always say, that fear, if you don't monitor it or deal with it, it can be paralyzing. As we age, the fear grows with it because why? When we do not address it, it will only become worse and worse and worse, stronger and stronger and stronger until it becomes, which is my next topic, phobia. All right, so it will become phobia. And phobia is something whereby when a situation arises, you're just like, oh, that's it. And it's totally illogical. Totally. So what are the different phobias? There are what we call social phobia, whereby a fear of interacting with other people. There are people like that. They just don't. There's a fear. Fear of what? You think about it. Why is it that the person has this fear of interacting? Is it because they were rejected? They don't want to be judged? It reminds them of past horrible experiences with when they were socializing with other people. So what actually happened? Okay, so then it becomes a phobia whereby they just do not want to socialize with anyone. No matter how nice these people can be to them, as long as we are socializing, no thank you. So it is very illogical. Okay, so I think we have a question here. Yes, let's see, what's this question? Hi, Pastor David. Thank you for tuning in. Hi JB, how do we distinguish fear that's based on our version of reality versus what is actually real? Now, that's a very good question. That's where we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we're afraid of? So the first thing is to identify what is it that we're afraid of. So to give you an example, let's say, nurturing children, nurturing people, any form of nurturing. You want the person, conventionally, right? You want the person to be of a certain way, out of very good intentions. That is why I initially, just now, I used the example of a parent always dictating to the child that you should do this, so that when you grow up, you'll be successful, you'll be financially independent, and so on and so forth. And when they don't do what the parent wants them to do, in the name of love for them, so there's a fear, and stress comes out. You're anxious. Your child is not doing well in school. You become very stressed. That emotion of fear kicks in. That your child may not make it in as an adult. All right, so then we check in. Yes, your intention is such. Yes, your experience tells you that when you do well in school, when you go to a good college, you have a degree, or in some families you must be a professional like an accountant, a lawyer, and an engineer, then you are safe. Otherwise, the risk is too much. It's not good for you. So again, because you are projecting your reality of what you think is the version of success and happiness to that child. Okay? So that is based on your experience. But you see, if that is a truth, if that is the truth, then everyone who doesn't fit your version of reality should not be as happy as they should be. It doesn't make sense. So using logic, you already know that if your reality, if your version of reality is true, then it should be pervasive. That means everyone should be should feel that happiness and that success if they actually fulfill your version of what life should be. Does that make sense? So we have to always check back. That's why we have to check back. So is that reality? Is that reality? Or is that your version of reality? You see, even if you go to different countries, or if you go on YouTube and you watch other countries, other cultures, their reality and our reality is very different. Very, very different. Okay, in certain cultures, the women are the breadwinner, and the men stay home and they cook. So, but you see, and if the man wants to go out and do work, then it will be frowned upon. So, again, that reality is man-made. It's based on culture. It's not, you know, it is not reality as is. It's not. So that's how you can check. If your version of reality changes from culture to culture, person to person, then that is your version of reality. So it is not reality as is. That means it is not the truth. It's not the truth. Okay? I hope that makes sense, Pastor David. Okay? So that's how you check. I'm just giving you an example that's so that you will know. And if you want to understand more, then do join my workshop afterwards at 9:45, and I will guide you how to check. All right? So I have to move along because I only have a few minutes left. Now, other type of phobia, there are people who are afraid of animals. There are people who are afraid that they're called zoophobia, and then we have claustrophobia, fear of confined spaces. All right, so there are many types of phobias. So the fear will develop into a phobia. Okay, and there are some you can find out what happened, perhaps due to traumatic experiences when you were younger, and it develops into a phobia. And sometimes you just are born with a certain phobia, and psychologists have not really found an answer to that. All right. So what are the steps that you can take? Okay, so what I just said is, well, first of all, understand what your fear is all about. So let's not be very general. Oh, I'm afraid of heights. What about the heights are you afraid of? Well, I'm afraid of heights. So when I look down on a balcony, I always feel that the balcony will one day just, with my luck, the railing of the balcony may just give way and I'll just fall and I'll die. So I don't want to die with so much pain. So it's my fear of pain, and that's why I have this fear of heights. So even if I am looking out the window, I'll just look like that, and I won't like, how some people, they will lean on the window and say, oh, what a nice view. I'll be like, okay, I'll just be like a hand, like an arm length away. I go, okay, very nice. So again, it's that fear of falling out of the building and then dying a horrible death, because it's going to be, the sensation of free fall, which I don't like, from as a child when I was on the roller coaster and that free fall sensation, I just totally don't like it. So I could already visualize that. So going through that horrible free fall experience, and after that you go, and then it's a lot of suffering, a lot of pain. So that somehow has drilled into me, and as I become older, it's just become bigger, like bigger and bigger and bigger. So, and it's become a phobia. And that's what happens. That's what happens when we do not address it. All right? So understand. So for me, it's is that experience of horrible feeling of free falling and then all that pain. All right, so that's my fear. So I need to focus. So I need to understand and see how to overcome that, which I will show you how. Um, so do that. All right. Then the next is you take baby steps. Take baby steps. All right. And how do I, what I always like to say, take baby steps, because in anything that we do, if we want to change the way we do things, adopt healthier habits, baby steps. Just like if you're lifting weights, is impossible that I'm just going to give you 100 kg weights and you go, oh yeah, lift it. Impossible. Start with 5 kgs, increase to 10, and so on and so forth. So baby steps. So consistency is very, very important. Okay, it's not once a year affair. It is a daily thing where you remind yourself. That's why mindfulness is very important, because when you're mindful, when you're aware, you will remind yourself, yes, I need to do this daily. And if you keep forgetting, just put a post-it, just come up with ways. Put it in your diary, put it on your phone, a reminder. If you want something bad enough, you'll figure out a way that will serve you. Okay, so the system that you set up for yourself must serve you instead of you serving the system. All right, so people always say, oh yeah, I put it in my diary and I even forget to check my diary. So the diary doesn't work. So if you need things in your face, such as, oh, maybe put a post-it on the mirror above your sink, so that every time when you brush your teeth in the morning, these are the things you need to do. So understand, so be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself what really works. And if you're going to say, oh, I'm going to ask, my partner, my wife, whoever, to remind me, and you always want someone to remind you, or you want your buddy to remind you, so that, how we always like to have a buddy system. To me, it's not going to work, because why? I am dependent on another person to remind me to do something or to motivate me to do something. And if that person doesn't, then I won't. So I am not in control of what I have set my intention to do. And I always have to depend on somebody else. And I think that is a bit, and if you think on a deeper level, it's always a cop out, because when the person forgets and then you go, oh, and in your mind you go, oh, see, thank goodness, oh, I actually hate it. But it's your fault because you never told me, right? So it's that back door. So so when you're honest with yourself, you will come up with a system that works for you, that will not have a back door. That's my point, right? So baby steps is very, very important, so that it's not overwhelming. Just like for me, if you want me to just lean against the balcony like that, forget it. I'm not. But I can inch my way every time I go to a balcony, and then when I have developed a certain level of comfort, as I get closer to the railing, then it becomes okay. And I've challenged myself many times doing that. All right. So, baby steps. And as I always say, take some chill time. The chill time I'm referring to, those of you who have, who didn't hear my previous episodes, the chill time. I have coined mindfulness training as chill time. What does that mean? You chill, just sit anywhere on the sofa, all right? And just focus on breathing. That's the most basic. You can focus on your phone. Just focus on something. And that's it. Focus, because why? Just the practice of focusing on one thing for 5-10 minutes every day, you develop the control of your mind. You learn how to focus. You're honing your focusing skills, and that is very important. All right? That's very important, because why? When you want to focus on understanding how your mind works, you will have a much better control of doing that. And you won't be able to say, and you will never say again, oh, but I can't help it. When you say I cannot help it, it is feedback for you that you are not in control of your mind, no matter what you say. That's why every time when I hear somebody go, but I can't help it, or I'm not in the mood, that's an emotion. Where does the emotion arise from? It arises from our mind. So if you cannot even control that, it only shows that you have not been practicing, how to control your mind. Very simple. So that is why it is so important. So if you want to have clarity of the mind, and that is why I have this as part of the Detox Your Mind program, is because when we have that control of the mind, no matter how we feel, we will go, thank you very much, but I need to get this done now. There will be more clarity because your emotions will come and go, come and go, come and go. Whether you're happy or sad, you're in the mood or you're not in the mood, it is there. You're not going to entertain it. You're just going to focus on what you need to do. And a lot of times that's what we do at work anyways. Sometimes at work you don't want to do it, but you have to because you have a deadline. Same logic. But you become very good at that because every day you are just taking some chill time to relax and just focus on something. You can, if you don't want to focus on your breath, you can always focus on a cup of coffee that you're enjoying. Anything to help you focus. All right, so that's why I call it the chill time. I think it's more inviting than meditation because every time when I say meditation, people go, that's not for me. Okay, before I continue, there are some questions here. So fun. Hi, so fun. Is fear always something negative? Wouldn't we need a certain degree of fear in certain area of life in order to motivate us to perform better? Again, like I said, you have to check yourself because if your fear drives you instead of you driving yourself, then you're out of control. So you tell me whether or not that is good. You rather be in control or out of control? So that's a question you have to ask yourself. Okay? You do not need to have fear to motivate yourself. If you want something bad enough, you will go and get it. You will motivate yourself. So is your motivation based on fear or based on love, which is what I spoke about a few episodes ago about loving yourself. If you love yourself the right way and you want it bad enough, you love yourself in a way that you will evolve to your fullest potential, and you will evolve to tap into your innate natural self of kindness, compassion, and selflessness. You will achieve. You will. Whatever you set your mind towards, you will achieve. But see, that's based on love, not based on fear. So there is a difference. Fear is suffocating. Love is liberating. So you choose. Okay, so fun. So yes, you can still be an achiever, but instead of it arising from fear, let it arise from love. I hope that makes sense. All right, so fun. And Dr. Hank, many people fear of height naturally. I think it's a kind of self-protection. Yes. Well, we have our friends who can just lean on the window like that. On an observatory deck, they just lean on it. And I was like, oh my goodness, can you imagine if that observatory deck, that glass was like this, was horizontal. And they just laid flat like that and they just looked down and you're like, 200 meters above ground? So some people love height. Okay, but not me. So anyways, moving on. Where are we right now? Yeah, so chill time. So that's my new term now, chill time. It's more cool. People go, oh yeah, tell me more. So there you go. And so how do you deal with fear? So for baby steps, like I say, the fear will always be there. It will not go away overnight. So what do? We focus on what we need to do. We focus on something else that is more constructive. Okay? Instead of focusing on the fear, we focus on this. That can only happen if you have a good control of your mind. If you are struggling with focusing on something else other than your fear, that means you don't have a good control of your mind yet. The good news is I said yet, which means you can still learn by taking your chill time, 5-10 minutes every day. You don't have to be on a beach to chill. You can always be on a sofa, at a desk, have a cup of tea or coffee, and just chill and focus on one thing. 5-10 minutes every day, I guarantee you, you'll be very good at it. Okay? So do that. So yes, focus on, so instead of focusing on your fear and getting immersed and paralyzed by your fear, focus on what you need to do. Something that you know you need to do. Yes, your fear is there, but you're not going to entertain it. That will help you overcome. That will help you get things done instead of being paralyzed by your fear. Okay? But of course, if your fear is so overwhelming, then and it's beyond your control, no matter what you do, then I would highly suggest that you consult a professional therapist or a counselor. Definitely. Okay? The fear that I'm talking about are just normal fear. Okay? If it is really, really serious fear, definitely you need to seek for professional help. All right? So that helps. And also, when you have fears of financial loss, health, what is good is to focus on gratitude. So again, you see how gratitude, the practice of being grateful is so beneficial for all of us that it can also help us have less fear. Because why? Because we're training ourselves and adopting this new habit of focusing on what we already have instead of what may happen later on or may not happen later on. So we're very grateful and very present, because when we practice gratitude, we are very present with what it is that we have. So instead of focusing on, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? Or is that not going to happen? Am I going to be starving? Am I going to be losing my job? You know what? Deal with it when it comes. Yes, you can plan all you want. You can plan, of course. But that's it. Everything else is out of control. So you might as well be happy now and feel grateful with what you have right now. Cherish it, cherish it, cherish it. Okay? Then your fear becomes less and less and less. All right? So gratitude. And like I said, accept things that you cannot change. You just accept it. All right? So for those of you who are afraid of dying, I mean, who isn't, but if you are truly, truly afraid of dying, then there are books out there that actually tell you about the process of dying, medical books, spiritual books, whatever it is that you subscribe to. Understand the process of dying. Understand what happens, and because when you have knowledge, the fear will subside eventually. And many people are afraid of the unknown, and that's why the fear. Think about it. Why is it so difficult for us to jump out of our comfort zone? Because of the unknown. Okay, the fear of failing, and for some people, the fear of succeeding. Yeah, that's much deeper, which is what I spoke about. The fear of although outwardly you say, yeah, I want to succeed, but deep down you are actually afraid. Because why? Success comes with a lot of responsibility, and you have to always operate out of your comfort zone. And some people say, it's not for me. Not for me. Okay, so again, when we practice mindfulness, we are very clear with where our fear arises from, and then from there, you will be able to identify and slowly, using baby steps, to overcome them. Okay, but for now, just focus on what you need to do and let your emotion, which is the fear, arise, and it will go. All right, so thank you very much. Before I go, I would like to acknowledge and thank our sponsors. Today's sponsor is Anonymous, dedicated towards all beings' liberation from suffering and attainment of compassion, wisdom, and true happiness. And the second sponsor is also Anonymous, dedication may all become awakened to live in their fullest potential. So thank you very much. If you find this program very, very beneficial, please sponsor. There is a link at the end of this program. With your sponsorship, we are able to sustain our online programs with all of you. Okay, and at the same time, if you like this program, do click the like on the Kechara Forest Retreat fan page. When you click the like, you get notifications of our programs on this fan page. Okay, and last but not least, please share on on your personal Facebook today's program because, well, you never know who out there will benefit from today's talk. All right, so I'll see you guys later. And if you like to join the workshop, well, you can always, there's an email that you can email to the administrator and she will email you the Google Meets link and you can join us on a closed workshop and I will guide you on how to work further into our fears. All right, so I'll see you guys next Saturday. Bye bye.